my shop. My name is Steve. Today we've got another day in the life of a cord owner. It's been a long ordeal, but today I thought we had this thing all together, and it didn't turn out that way. We've got a little problem with the shifting. The transmission is located right here on the cord, and it's controlled by the shifter lever right here. I'll bring you in close and let you see this up close, how this is supposed to work. But there's a piece, there's a solenoid, 4-solenoid unit that does the shifting for you. 2 actuators. This is a vacuum piston that goes both ways. Yeah, okay. And then there's this part here, which goes back and slides back and forth this way. Now, inside of this housing, there's a couple of rods that come out of the transmission that have a hook on it, or a slot carved in it, that this goes into, and when it shifts the gear like so, or shifts it down like so. Anyway, you get the idea. And it's all controlled by vacuum. If I lean this over and show you up in here, this is the big piston in here that goes forward and reverse, back and forth, and that's all it does is push in and out. But inside of this thing, there's another lever that senses where the piston is inside this cylinder. And when it's in neutral, which is right there, the switch inside says, okay, we're at neutral, or we're at the center position. But the way this thing is designed, I should take you over to the steering column. Let me do that. Now this is the gear shift lever right here. And if I take it over, put it into first, it's supposed to shift into first. If I pull this little lever out and up, it shifts it into reverse, and so forth. So in the middle here is neutral. Second, third, fourth. Okay, so how does that all work? Well, generally we start the car. I usually set this in neutral, and we start the car, start the engine. When I depress the clutch, nothing really happens until I depress the clutch pedal. But once I depress the clutch pedal and I have the key on, the engine will start, and it's ready to shift into the gear you want it to shift into. So at that point, I can take the gear selector and either go into reverse or first. So for this exercise, we'll say first, and then I'll let the clutch out, and the car will start to move. While the clutch is out, I've got my foot off the clutch at this point, I would take the lever and put it into second. Now, when the engine got up to the proper RPMs, or the speed I wanted to shift it at, I simply push in the clutch, and it would shift into second. I let the clutch out, and away we go into second. I move it down to third, get up to speed a little more, press the clutch in, and magically it shifts into third, and so forth. So up into fourth, the same thing. Press the clutch in, it shifts. Now, the only caveat to this is if I put it back into neutral, and push the clutch in, it will go into neutral, and the car will basically coast at that point out of gear, just like you'd take a manual transmission and shift it into neutral. It's synchronized. We have synchronization on the 3 second, third, and fourth gears. Reverse and first are not synchronized, but second, third, and fourth are. So you have to really kind of know what you're doing here, because if you were to accidentally stick it into first gear while you're going down the road or while the car's rolling, and you mash the clutch down, it's going to try to shift into first gear. It doesn't have any built-in safety, so you're supposed to be smart enough to know not to do that. Same way with reverse. It just grind the gears. So that's one of the, I guess, features they didn't think people were as dumb as they are today. So that's how the shifting works. And what happens then, let's go back out to the front of the car. So there's a valve body that I've taken off now. It's missing. It sits right here. And there's 4 solenoids in there. Let's just show you the schematic. And there's 4 electric solenoids in here. And as the gear shift lever up here is if you shift from first, second, third, there's a rod that goes inside that shift lever. That little rod I was working on in the steering column. That's it right there. And it's got a switch here, and then it's got a rod. And on this rod, there's a little brass ring. It's about a 1/2 inch long. And it's making contact right now, because we're in neutral. It's making contact right now with the center wire here. And there's 3 positions that wire is attached to. So depending on where this lever is positioned, either we're over in first and reverse or over in fourth gear, then it signals these wires. It makes a connection, travels through and goes down and tells which solenoid to open and close. And then inside of the cylinder here, it's represented right here, and it has a little switch, which I told you about earlier, that's connected to the plunger that moves forward and back. Actually, it goes this way, forward and back. And so it finds a neutral position. With this switch here, it tells it that it's in neutral, or it's in the center position, which is neutral. Then we have our interlock switch over here, which is this little gadget right here, which has these wires. And as this shaft moves in and out, it actually works a switch lever inside of here. On the end of this shaft, there's another groove that hooks into like a toggle switch, and the toggle switch rotates this switch inside of here and makes these wires function that way. So that's the function of this interlock switch here. So between that and then this is a gear shift position here, which we're set at neutral. And this is our cross shift. That's that rod goes back and forth this way. And then up here we go from the battery to the start X, and then it goes to the clutch switch, and nothing happens until the clutch is depressed and the switch is activated. Once this switch is activated, it sends current flowing up to number 10 up here, which is that top wire. And then everything else, boom, all that happens in an instant. It's supposed to shift. Well, we were having a problem. It worked beautifully from first and reverse. I could go from first and reverse, no problem. Take it out of first and go to second, and it wouldn't shift. It would just stay, well, it actually would shift to neutral, but then it wouldn't go in anymore, so you couldn't put it back into first until you came to a complete stop. So you had to be real careful. It wouldn't shift from second to third, from first to fourth. And then I could go from fourth to second. But I couldn't get it to go from first to second. I'd go from fourth to second, but I couldn't go from first to second. So we weren't sure why. But we started checking and testing and retesting and checking, and what we determined was one issue was we had a few vacuum leaks. The engine was not responding properly. It was backfiring through the carburetor and stuff, and we had to tighten a few of the vacuum leaks. I thought that was the majority of the problem. But under closer scrutiny, it would shift, and I didn't understand. Even though we had vacuum leaks, it would shift from first to reverse. It did try to shift, but it wouldn't go from second to third. And so we were really puzzled by the problem we were having. And let's see if I got... So this piece here is the top of the solenoid. There's the 4 solenoids. And there's a rods go inside each one of those, and then there's a seal that each one of these releases a plunger and lets the valve work. Well, under testing, we discovered these are jumpered right here. You see that little brass piece? That's jumpered. These 2 pins are jumpered together, and then there's a space there, and then there's 2 more pins, and these are jumpered together, and then these are jumpered together. And these aren't. These are separate. That's the only 2 that aren't really connected, jumpered together. So we started testing. Let's see if I can make it do it. All right, now, if you look real close here, I can touch right here and right here. Okay. We got connection. We got no connection. Look at that. Nothing. But if I go down to here, so we thought we were okay, but we weren't. If I go over here, there's no connection. No connection. We got this one here's connected here that way, but nothing this way. So we got no connection across this bus bar. Connection there. So we got connection that way. Let's see, let me get off there and get here. So these bus bars are not making good connections. We had a problem. Our problem seems to be that these aren't making the connection they're supposed to. And consequently, I think we've got our problem is right here. These one little bus bar jumpers aren't hooked in. Well, when we took it apart, let's see, I don't think I've got the piece in here. There was a little jumper wire. Somebody had fashioned a little spring clip jumper that went on here and made the connection, which it. Yeah. Anyway, there was a little jumper wire here. Okay. I'll find it, but anyhow, someone had fashioned a jumper wire to go between these terminals and just kind of made a little spring out of some wire and twisted around there and made the connection. So that's our problem, and we've got to fix that. So hopefully that's going to be all of the problem we have, because we've checked most everything else and eventually figured out that we weren't getting connection through these terminals. So, okay, I'm back. Here's that little wire. I found it. And someone had just fashioned looks like a paper clip or something like that, and they just sort of fit it over like so, and that connected that replaced the bus bar that was supposed to be a jumper there. So I'm not sure how I want to repair this. If I want to try just soldering, make a solder connection that way, or I looked inside. There might be a way I can go inside of this thing and run a jumper on the inside. There's solder connections on the inside. We'll make that decision here shortly. Okay, here's the inside. The inside looks like there's one wire going to all four of these over here, and then there's 3 wires going to this set of terminals here. So we got the 4 solenoids are hooked up just like that. Now, if we spin this around, look at it from this way, this got a jump bar, a bus bar jump, this one's jumped, and this one's jumped. But they're not good connections. So if I take a little jumper wire and solder it across inside of here, it'll look perfectly natural from the outside, but we'll have eliminated that problem. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to get a soldering iron, and we'll try just putting a solder wire, piece of wire jumper across, and bypass that other issue. So let's get that on. Okay. There we go. better light. Okay. Okay, I've had this little tool forever. I don't know where I got it. I've had it forever. Let's see, made in USA. Believe it or not, this thing was made in USA, patent pending. But it's a little, it's a very clever little device. It's got this little strip of sandpaper, and it's spring loaded, and it just gives you two working surfaces here. One is comes to a point, and the other is kind of round, and the spring tension just holds it in place, and you just kind of, as it wears out, you just kind of roll it around to the next clean spot. So hopefully this is going to get in here now and let us clean these terminals up. So we can, and I think my little 25-watt soldering iron isn't going to cut it, so I'm going to have to go to a little bigger gun. Okay. All right. Let's give it a go. Made in USA. Okay, another made in USA. Believe it or not, two tools here, both made in USA. How about that? Let's see if we can get some solder on here. Yep, get solder there. The solder's so thin, it's 0.35 thick, so it's pretty darn thin. But for this delicate work, I find it really makes the job go easier because the gun doesn't have to heat up the part, and a big clump of solder too. So, okay. Now our last step here is just to put this on form this up. Let's see if you can see what I'm doing here. Yeah, form this up, and this little wire jumper. I'm going to set that down in there, just like so, and solder it in. So let me switch this over to my other hand here. Go this way, like so. Now, use the left hand to hold it. And we'll just okay. Right, and about there. There we go. Now it is. Okay. That should be out of the way. Shouldn't interfere with the solenoid at all. It's like a cold joint. I got a cold solder joint there. That's not good. I don't know if you know the difference between a cold solder joint, but it's, see how shiny this one is and how dull this one is? Not good. We want a shiny joint there, not a dull joint. So let me see if I can, let's see if we can fix that. Come on, baby. Grab. There we go. And need 3 hands here. Come on. There she goes. There she goes. What you don't want to do is blow to cool it, because that's one thing that'll, that's better. We can live with that now. Okay. That's out of the road there. Yep. All right. Let's just see. Okay, I'll turn it this way so you can see the meter, but this is the two, these are the two terminals that we joined together. Success. Well, proof positive. Okay, there's a couple more to do, but not sure I'll bring you along for the rest of the ride, but we'll see.
See the spot there. Can't use my camera.
All right.